My wife screamed at our newborn, vanished for 3 years, then reappeared with a rich husband and a lawyer, demanding full custody of the daughter she never wanted, but she had no idea what I'd been quietly building. The first word my daughter ever said was stop. Not mama, not dada, stop. I didn't understand it at first. She was 11 months old, sitting in her high chair, and she looked up at me with those enormous brown eyes and said it so clearly it almost knocked me backward. Stop, like she'd been practicing it in the dark. Then I realized why. For the first 11 months of her life, that was the word she heard most. Me, begging her mother to stop screaming, stop throwing, stop standing over the crib at 2 in the morning, shrieking at a newborn for waking up, a newborn who needed to eat. I remember the night it clicked for me, the full weight of it. Lily had stopped crying. She was maybe 4 months old and she just stopped. Most parents would have been relieved. I was terrified. I picked her up and she went completely still in my arms, rigid, like she was bracing for something. She had learned, at 4 months old, that noise brought danger, that destroyed something in me I haven't fully rebuilt. My name is Daniel Thompson. I'm 34 years old. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Clarksburg, Maryland, 12 minutes from Lily's school. And the story I'm about to tell you is the one I've been carrying for almost 5 years, through one of the worst custody battles this county has seen, through a 3-year disappearance, through a second filing that made the first one look like a parking dispute. I need to tell it from the beginning, because if I start in the middle, you'll miss the part that matters most. Karen and I met in 2017 at a mutual friend's birthday party in Bethesda. She was funny, sharp, confident in the particular way that can look like self-assurance, but is actually something more fragile underneath. I was 28. I didn't know what I was looking at. I just knew I was attracted to her, and she seemed attracted to me. And for about 18 months, that was enough. We moved in together in January 2019, rented a 3-bedroom house in Silver Spring, $2,400 a month, split evenly. Her idea. She had just started a new job in marketing at a mid-size firm downtown, and she was excited, focused, full of plans. I was working as a project manager for a construction company out of Rockville. Good salary, stable hours. We weren't flashy people, but we were comfortable. The pregnancy wasn't planned. We'd been together 2 years when Karen told me in November 2019, standing in the bathroom at 7 in the morning with the test in her hand and an expression I couldn't read. I told her I was happy. I meant it. She said she was happy too. And maybe she was, right then, in that moment. I want to believe that. What I know is that by month 6, something had shifted. She stopped talking to me about the pregnancy, stopped coming to appointments. When I asked her how she was feeling, she'd say fine and change the subject. I told myself it was stress. New job, new life stage, a lot happening at once. I made excuses for her the way you do when you're trying very hard not to see what's in front of you. Lily arrived on July 14th, 2020 at 6:22 in the morning. 6 pounds, 14 ounces, the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. Karen held her for maybe 40 seconds in the delivery room. Then she handed her to me. She said she was tired. She wasn't wrong. Labor is exhausting. I didn't read anything into it that day. By the end of the first week at home, I was starting to read things into everything. The postpartum diagnosis came 3 weeks later. Karen's OB was the one who flagged it, not me, after Karen broke down crying in the waiting room during her follow-up appointment. The doctor prescribed medication and referred her to a therapist named Dr. Anna Feltz, who specialized in perinatal mental health. Karen went twice, then she stopped going. When I asked her about it, she said Dr. Feltz was useless, that she didn't need a therapist, that she was fine. She was not fine. The screaming started in week 4, not at me, at Lily, at a newborn, for crying, for needing a diaper change, for existing at 3 in the morning in the way that newborns exist. I would wake up to the sound of Karen standing over the crib, and I would sprint down the hallway and find Lily rigid and silent, that terrible stillness, while Karen yelled at her, really yelled. Not the frustrated noise of a sleep-deprived parent at their limit, something colder than that, something targeted. I started sleeping in Lily's room on a camping mat. I told Karen it was so she could get rest. Really, it was because I was afraid to leave Lily alone. There's an incident from around week 7 that I think about more than any other. Karen came into the nursery at 11 at night. I was sitting in the rocking chair, Lily asleep on my chest. Karen stood in the doorway and looked at us, and her face was blank, completely empty. No anger, no sadness, no warmth, nothing. She looked at her daughter and felt nothing. I could see it. I'd never seen that look on another human being before. I need you to take her somewhere else, Karen said. Karen, I said I need her somewhere else. I can't do this. I asked her what this meant. She turned around and walked back to the bedroom and closed the door. I held Lily tighter and thought, okay, so that's where we are. By November 2020, I had spoken to a divorce attorney named Phil Garrett out of a firm in Rockville. I had spent $3,500 just on consultations. Phil walked me through what I needed and what I needed to start documenting. I began keeping a journal that same week, time-stamped entries, incident by incident, with as much specificity as I could manage. Dates, times, exact words said. I saved every text. I took photos when there was something to photograph. Karen threw a glass across the kitchen on November 19th. It missed Lily's carrier by about 2 2 feet. I wrote it down that night. 11:19 p.m. Lily in infant carrier on kitchen table. Karen threw drinking glass from counter toward far wall. No injury. I filed for divorce in January 2021. Lily was 6 months old. What came next very nearly broke me. Karen had called a lawyer before I even served the papers. Her attorney, a man named Graves, who I will always associate with the particular smell of expensive cologne and bad faith, had clearly counseled her well. She arrived at our first mediation session with a narrative already constructed. I was controlling. I was verbally abusive. I had isolated her from her friends. She had photographs I had never seen, that appeared to show bruising on her upper arms and lower back. I sat across from her in that conference room and looked at those photos, and I felt the floor drop out from under me. I knew those marks weren't from me. I knew it, but I also knew how this looked, and I knew what my lawyer was telling me about how these things can go, and I knew that the one thing I absolutely could not allow was for Karen to get custody of Lily. So I made a calculation. I gave up the house. I walked away from roughly $42,000 in equity we'd built up together. I agreed to spousal support of $600 a month for 18 months. I kept nothing except my car, my clothing, a few boxes of books, and primary physical custody of Lily, which Karen's own attorney facilitated almost without comment because Karen didn't fight for it. She agreed to every custody term within 48 hours of receiving our proposal. Supervised visitation, bi-weekly. She never exercised a single visit. The divorce was finalized on March 8th, 2021. I signed the papers at Garrett's office, and then I drove to the apartment I'd rented in Clarksburg, a one-bedroom on Clopper Road, $1,150 a month, and I sat on the floor with Lily in my lap, and I stared at the bare walls. "Dada," she said and bit my thumb. First time she'd said it. I'd been waiting for 7 months. She looked very pleased with herself. I cried, big, ugly, relieved crying. She patted my cheek with one open hand and made a sound like she was trying to comfort me, and I thought, okay, we can do this. The next 2 years were hard in a way that was also, somehow, the best time of my life. I was 30 years old, single, with full custody of an infant, working full-time, and surviving on about 5 hours of sleep a night. I ate lunch at my desk most days because I was saving every extra dollar for Lily. New clothes as she outgrew sizes. A toddler bed when she was ready. Books. She loved books from the beginning. Would bring me the same 3 over and over until I had them memorized. Music classes at the community center on Saturday mornings, $8 a session, which she adored with her entire body, stamping her feet on the wood floor and shrieking with joy. My mother drove up from Richmond every other weekend to help. My coworker Marcus covered for me twice when Lily got sick, and I had to leave work early without warning. My neighbor Mrs. Park, retired school teacher, watched Lily on the 2 evenings a week I had evening calls. I paid her $60 a week, and she always fed Lily dinner and taught her Korean words for vegetables. Lily changed. That was the thing that kept me going. Month by month she changed. The rigidity in her body softened. The flinching stopped. She started demanding things. Cuddles, stories, the specific blue cup and not the green one, with this absolute confidence that her demands would be met, because they always were. She had learned she was safe. She had learned she was wanted. By the time she was 2 years old, she was the loudest, most opinionated, most sociable toddler I had ever met. Her daycare teacher, Ms. Angela, told me in a conference in April 2022 that Lily was one of the most emotionally intuitive children she had in her class, that she was always the one who noticed when another kid was upset and went to sit beside them. I did not tell Ms. Angela what the first year of Lily's life had looked like. I just nodded and felt something enormous and quiet in my chest. I heard nothing from Karen. Not a call, not a text, not a birthday card when Lily turned 2 in July 2022, not a Christmas card. Not one single word for 2 years, then 3. I had a forwarding address for her attorney in case of legal necessity, and I used it exactly once to notify him I was moving to a larger apartment on Brandermill Street in October 2022, a 2-bedroom, $1,280 a month, so Lily could have her own room, her own space, walls she could put her drawings on. I told myself Karen's silence was a mercy, and it was, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't also do something to me. Not grief, exactly. More like the particular sadness of watching something that should have been real reveal itself as hollow all the way through. I had believed in our marriage at some point. I had wanted it to work. That person existed. That version of Daniel Thompson, standing in a bathroom doorway being handed a positive pregnancy test, genuinely hoping. He existed, and he deserved better than this. I processed it, slowly, imperfectly. I started running in the mornings, before Lily woke up. I read. I went to therapy for 8 months. A therapist named Carl Weber who specialized in co-parenting trauma, and who over those 8 months helped me understand several things about myself that were uncomfortable and necessary. I came out of it not fixed, exactly, but more honest. Less likely to look away from things I didn't want to see. That discipline, the not looking away, would matter more than I knew. Because in the early spring of 2023, something changed. I got a text from a number I didn't recognize on a Saturday in March. It said, "I've been in touch with Karen. She's back in the area. I thought you should know." There was no name. I spent 2 days trying to figure out who had sent it. I never found out. out. But I believed it, and I started doing something I hadn't done in 2 years. I started keeping records again. Not because I had anything specific to react to, just a gut feeling, that old learned vigilance kicking back in. I started saving everything, not dramatically, just methodically. Financial records, school records, every receipt, every email from Lily's school, every note from her pediatrician. I had always kept these things. I just started organizing them more carefully. I bought a fireproof lockbox from the hardware store on Route 355 for $62, and I put all the physical documents in it. I didn't tell anyone I was doing this. I just did it. In May 2023, Lily had her evaluation at the Pediatric Associates Clinic on Muddy Branch Road, her standard developmental check at 3 years old. Her pediatrician, Dr. Okonkwo, wrote in his report that Lily was meeting and exceeding all developmental benchmarks, emotionally healthy, socially advanced for her age, strongly attached to primary caregiver. I made 3 copies of that report. I had no idea in May 2023 that I was going to need every single one of them. The papers arrived at my door on June 9th, 2023. I was making Lily's lunch, peanut butter, no jelly, cut into triangles, the only acceptable configuration, when the knock came. I opened the door to a man in a polo shirt who asked if I was Daniel Thompson and handed me an envelope without any further ceremony. Inside was a filing from the Montgomery County Family Court. Petitioner, Karen Marie Parker Donnelly. Respondent, Daniel Scott Thompson. Request for modification of custody arrangement. Seeking full physical and legal custody of Isabella Rose Thompson. Not shared, not modified visitation. Full custody. I read it 3 times standing in my kitchen doorway while Lily ate her triangles and narrated a cartoon playing on the tablet. I felt something that wasn't quite panic, more like a kind of cold, absolute clarity, like the moment before something breaks. I called Phil Garrett. He was out of the office. His associate connected me with Sarah Chen, the attorney who would end up representing me through all of it and who would turn out to be one of the most important people in this whole story. Sarah's first question, after I explained the situation, was, "How organized are your records?" "Very," I said. A brief pause. "Good. We're going to need them." Karen, I learned over the next several weeks, had married a man named Derek Donnelly in February 2022. Derek was 47 years old, a commercial real estate developer based out of Chevy Chase. The Donnelly Realty Group had projects across Maryland, Virginia, and Delaware. Derek was worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 to $12 million, depending on which public filings you looked at. They had a home in Chevy Chase worth approximately $1.8 million, 4 bedrooms, a pool, a backyard with a play structure. Karen, according to the filing, was no longer working. She had resigned from her marketing position in the fall of 2021 and had been living as a full-time wife. She was now presenting herself, for purposes of this petition, as a full-time mother who was prepared to devote herself entirely to Lily's care. I sat with that for a long time. There was a photo attached to the filing. Karen and Derek at some kind of charity event. Her in an evening gown, him in a tuxedo. She looked like someone I'd never met. The woman in that photo had nothing in common with the woman who had stood in a nursery doorway at 11 at night and told me to take her daughter somewhere else. I kept that photo. I don't know why. Maybe I just needed to be able to look at it when my resolve got soft. Sarah filed our response in late June. We documented everything. 3 years of primary custody, 0 contact from Karen, Lily's developmental records, school records, the pediatric evaluation. We included a declaration from Ms. Angela, Lily's daycare teacher, who wrote 3 paragraphs about Lily's emotional health and social development that I still can't read without my chest going tight. We included a declaration from Mrs. Park. We included a declaration from my mother. Karen's attorney, a senior partner at a Bethesda firm named Whitfield & Associates, a man named Robert Parrish who billed at $650 an hour and had the affect of someone who had never lost a case and intended to keep it that way, filed a response to our response that was essentially a character assassination. It characterized my apartment as inadequate. It characterized my income as insufficient. It characterized my mother's involvement in childcare as evidence of my inability to parent independently. It noted, with what I felt was particular bad faith, that Lily had limited exposure to cultural enrichment opportunities and no access to private educational resources. The pool, again. Always back to the pool. What it didn't address, because it couldn't, was the 3 years, the silence, the birthday that passed with nothing, the Christmas, the developmental evaluation at which no maternal input had been sought because there was no mother present to ask. The court ordered a full custody evaluation in August 2023. Dr. Raymond Williams, a licensed psychologist who did court-ordered evaluations for the Montgomery County Family Court, was assigned to our case. He would interview both parents, conduct home visits at both residences, and interview Lily with an age-appropriate protocol. I cleaned our apartment. Lily helped. She was very serious about it, carrying things from room to room with great concentration and announcing that we were getting ready for the important man. I had told her a doctor was coming to visit, that he wanted to see where she lived and talk to her a little. She seemed unbothered. She showed me which stuffed animals she planned to introduce him to. The home visit was on a Thursday in September. Dr. Williams spent 90 minutes at our apartment. He looked at Lily's room, the bookshelf, the art wall, the corner where she kept her building blocks and her project things, scraps of paper, stickers, tape, items of ambiguous origin. He asked Lily questions in a gentle, indirect way, and she answered all of them without hesitation and then launched, unprompted, into an extended description of a game she and I had invented involving a stuffed elephant named Gerald and a system of rules she had devised and revised several times. Dr. Williams took notes and said very little. Before he left, he thanked her for her time. She told him he was welcome and that he could come back whenever. I found out later from Sarah that the visit to Karen and Derek's home had gone notably differently. Lily had been quiet throughout. She had sat close to Karen on the couch and answered questions in single syllables. When Dr. Williams asked her to show him her room, the princess bedroom Karen's legal team had referenced, with the custom bed frame and the reading nook and the private bathroom, Lily said it was nice, but that it didn't have her books. Karen had purchased new books for the room. Lily said they weren't her books. She meant the ones from home, the ones we'd read together 50 times each. Dr. Williams submitted his report on October 14th, 2023. I read it in Sarah's office, sitting in a chair across from her desk. She had printed it out for me and slid it across the table without comment and waited while I went through it. Dr. Williams had found my home to be warm, stable, and fully adequate for Lily's developmental needs. He had found Lily to be securely attached to me. His language was primary and clearly established attachment bond with father. He noted her emotional health, her social development, the evidence of consistent and attentive parenting across multiple years. He noted that Lily had expressed comfort and ease in the home environment and distress at the idea of significant disruption. He had also noted something else. Karen, during her interviews with Dr. Williams, had attempted to discuss Lily's behavior at the maternal home in terms that did not align with his direct observation of Lily during those visits. She had described Lily as withdrawn and sad, as not her real self, as someone who was only performing happiness with her father and was secretly unhappy at home. She had provided, without being asked, a series of text messages she claimed to have received from Lily, except Lily was 3 years old and did not have a phone. When Dr. Williams asked Karen to clarify where these messages had originated, Karen said she meant they were messages that Lily had communicated through a third party. He had found no evidence supporting this characterization. He had found substantial evidence that Karen had attempted to introduce coached narrative elements into the evaluation. There was a sentence near the end of his report that Sarah had highlighted in yellow. The pattern of maternal behavior observed across evaluation sessions raises concern about the petitioner's capacity for honest self-assessment and appropriate co-parenting, and suggests that the current arrangement may be preferable for the child's stability and well-being. I put the report down on Sarah's desk. She lied to the evaluator, I said. She tried to, Sarah said. He noticed. We went to court on November 7th, 2023. The courtroom assigned to Judge Patricia Taylor was on the 4th floor of the Montgomery County Courthouse. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent overhead lights that hummed slightly. Karen sat at the plaintiff's table in a charcoal blazer, her hair down. Derek 2 rows behind her in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Robert Parrish arranged his folders with practiced efficiency. Karen didn't look at me. Parrish's opening was smooth and well-prepared. He built a picture of Karen's transformation, her stable marriage, her financial security, her readiness to provide Lily with every advantage a child could want. He was skilled. He made the swimming pool sound like a human right. Sarah countered with 5 years. She laid out the timeline from Lily's birth to the present day. Not as argument exactly, more like documentation, date by date, what had happened and what hadn't. The visits Karen had agreed to in the divorce and never exercised, the 3 birthdays, the 3 Christmases, the pediatric evaluations at which no second parent had ever appeared. She put Dr. Okonkwo's report on the screen. She put Dr. Williams' report on the screen. Then she put up a single slide that had nothing on it except a number, 1096. That is the number of days, Sarah said, between the date of the divorce decree in which Mrs. Parker Donnelly was granted supervised visitation rights to her daughter and the date she filed this petition. During those 1096 days, Mrs. Parker Donnelly exercised her visitation rights 0 times. She made no calls. She sent no cards. She made no inquiries about her daughter's health or development. She did not contact the school. She did not contact the pediatrician. She did not contact my client. For 1096 days, she was a ghost. And now she stands before this court and asks to be granted full custody. The courtroom was quiet. Karen's jaw tightened. Derek shifted in his seat behind her. Judge Taylor made a note on the paper in front of her. She did not look up. Parrish's redirect attempted to frame the 3-year absence as evidence of Karen's honoring the custody agreement. She hadn't contested it, hadn't interfered, had given Lily stability by staying away while she got herself well. He was working hard. I will give him that. Judge Taylor gave him exactly the amount of time he was entitled to, and then she called for closing statements. When it was over, Judge Taylor took a 15-minute recess. She came back and put on her reading glasses. She had a stack of papers in front of her that included both evaluations, both declarations, both sets of financial documents. She began to read from her finding aloud, slowly, slowly, with the methodical cadence of someone who has done this many times and understands that every word she says will be remembered. She noted Dr. Williams's findings. She noted the stability of the existing arrangement. She noted the absence of any meaningful maternal contact over 3 years. She noted the concerns raised in the evaluation report about Karen's conduct during the assessment process. More concerning, she said, and paused to turn a page, is the pattern of Mrs. Parker Donnelly's attempts to influence the child outside proper channels, despite making no effort to be present in her daughter's life for 3 years prior to this filing. Karen stood up so fast that her chair scraped backward across the floor. The sound was sharp and ugly in the quiet room. "This is ridiculous," she said. "I'm her mother, Mrs. Parker Donnelly." Judge Taylor's voice was not loud. It didn't need to be. "Sit down, or I will hold you in contempt of this court." Parrish had his hand on Karen's arm before she finished her sentence. She sat down. Her face was white. Derek in the row behind her looked straight ahead at nothing. Primary physical and legal custody remained with me. Karen was granted supervised visitation, 4 hours every other Saturday, at a designated family services center with a court-appointed monitor present. She was required to complete a parenting skills course and 8 sessions with a licensed therapist before unsupervised visitation could even be petitioned for. We walked out of the courthouse at 4:17 in the afternoon. Sarah was professional and composed until we reached the steps outside, at which point she allowed herself a small, satisfied exhale and said, "They overplayed it." I nodded. I felt shaky in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Lily was at my mother's in Richmond for the week. I called her from the parking garage. She answered on the second ring and said, "Daddy, Grandma taught me to braid." And I said that was incredible. And I asked if she was having fun, and she said yes. But could I come get her soon because she missed Gerald? Gerald was the stuffed elephant, named after no one in particular. "Yeah," I told her. "I'm coming to get you soon." I thought we were done. I want to be clear about that. I thought the worst of it was behind us. Karen was in the parking lot when I came out of the garage. She was standing by her car, a white Mercedes, Derek's probably, and she was watching me approach. I nearly turned and walked the other way. I didn't. She looked at me, just looked, for a long moment. That same flat, stone-cold expression from 5 years ago, from Lily's nursery doorway. The one that meant she was somewhere interior and unreachable, and making calculations I couldn't see. "This isn't over," she said. She was right. 93 days later, on February 8th, 2024, a process server arrived at my door at 7:40 in the morning while Lily was eating breakfast. I signed for the envelope without letting Lily see. I put it on the kitchen counter and waited until I had dropped her at school to open it. New filing. Karen and Derek Donnelly, joint petitioners. Modified custody request. Still seeking primary physical custody. But this time there was something else attached. An affidavit. From a woman named Sharon Wells, describing herself as a longtime friend and former co-worker of mine at the construction company in Rockville, alleging that I had, on multiple occasions between 2020 and 2021, discussed my frustration with Lily in terms that Sharon characterized as concerning and indicative of emotional instability. She alleged that I had said specifically that Lily ruined my life. I read it twice. I called Sarah and read it to her over the phone. There was a silence on the other end of the line. "Daniel," Sarah said carefully, "do you know this woman?" I knew Sharon Wells. She had worked in HR at the Rockville office from 2019 to 2021. We had spoken probably 12 times in total, always in professional contexts, never about Lily. I had never, in my life, said the words Sharon Wells was attributing to me. "She's lying," I said. "I believe you," Sarah said, "but we need to understand how Karen got to her. When did Sharon Wells leave the company?" I checked my records. I still had them. Every employment record, every performance review, every piece of paper I had generated or received in a professional context since 2018. I found Sharon Wells's last day, August 14th, 2021. She had resigned. Her exit had been noted in an HR memo because her departure was abrupt. But here was the thing that I had quietly filed away and nearly forgotten. The memo had noted the reason for her resignation, personal circumstances, and there had been a handwritten note in the margin of the copy I had kept. I don't remember writing it, but there it was, in my handwriting. Check LinkedIn. I don't know what past me had been suspicious of, but I pulled up Sharon Wells's LinkedIn profile, and I looked at it for a long time. Her current employer, listed since September 2021, was Donnelly Realty Group. I called Sarah back. I told her what I'd found. Another silence. Longer this time. "She works for Derek," Sarah said. "Has worked for Derek," I said, "since 1 month after she left my company." The investigation that followed took 6 weeks. Sarah brought in a private investigator named Greg Holt, who worked out of a Gaithersburg office, and who had, according to Sarah, a particular gift for financial forensics and document tracing. Greg found what we needed in 3 weeks. Sharon Wells had received a wire transfer of $28,000 from a personal account connected to Derek Donnelly on January 24th, 2024, 15 days before she signed the affidavit. The transfer was documented in records obtained through proper legal channels. The timing was not ambiguous, but there was something else Greg found, something that hit differently. Among the communications obtained during discovery, Karen's phone records, which the judge had granted access to after we filed our motion alleging witness tampering, there was a text exchange from December 2023 between Karen and Derek. 47 messages over 3 days. Most of them were tactical, lawyer discussions, strategy. But there was one from Karen to Derek sent at 11:53 p.m. on December 19th. It said, "I don't actually want full custody. I just want him to have to fight for it. I want him to spend money he doesn't have and lose sleep he can't afford. I want him to feel what scared feels like for once." I sat in Sarah's office on a Tuesday morning in late March and read that text on a printed page and felt something settle in me that had been unsettled for years. Not satisfaction, more like the strange, clarifying peace of finally understanding something completely. She had never wanted Lily, not at the beginning, not now. This was never about Lily. This was about me. We were back in Judge Taylor's courtroom on April 3rd, 2024. This time, there was an additional element. Karen and Derek faced a motion for sanctions related to the fabricated affidavit, and Karen faced a separate inquiry regarding the conduct Dr. Williams had documented. I did not feel triumphant going in. I want to be honest about that. I felt tired. The kind of tired that goes deeper than sleep can fix. I had spent nearly $40,000 in legal fees across both proceedings. I had lost weight I didn't have to lose. I had lain awake more nights than I could count, doing math that always came out the same. I could keep up with this for another year, maybe 2. After that, I wasn't sure. But we had the texts, and we had the wire transfer. Robert Parrish was notably less composed than he had been in November. He was present, professional, controlled, but he was working harder to maintain it. I noticed. Karen sat beside him with her hands in her lap and did not look at the plaintiff's table this time. She looked at the window. Sarah presented the evidence methodically. The LinkedIn connection, the wire transfer, the timing, the text from Karen to Derek on December 19th, 2023. She read it aloud into the court record. "I don't actually want full custody. I just want him to have to fight for it." The room was very still. Derek's chair made a small sound as he shifted his weight. Karen's face did not change. That was the thing I kept coming back to, later. Through all of it, through the evidence, through the reading of her own words, her face didn't change. She just sat there, blank and still. The same expression I had watched from across Lily's nursery in 2020. Whatever she felt it somewhere no one could see. Judge Taylor did not read from papers this time. She spoke directly, from notes, looking at the table rather than at the parties. She imposed sanctions. She ordered Derek Donnelly to pay $35,000 in attorney fees, a figure that covered most, though not all, of what I had spent. She ordered Karen to complete the parenting requirements already stipulated before any future custody petition would be entertained. She noted that the fabricated affidavit and the text message and evidence raised serious concerns about Karen's fitness to petition the court in good faith. "This court," Judge Taylor said at the end, "will not be used as a weapon." She looked up then, briefly, directly at Karen. "Am I understood?" Karen said yes. Her voice was even. I don't know what it cost her to make it so. We walked out of the courthouse for the second time. Sarah and I stood on the steps in the April air, and neither of us said anything for a moment. "That's it?" I asked. "For now," Sarah said. "What does for now mean?" She thought about it. "It means she can file again." Theoretically, but she'd be filing against this record, against these sanctions, against a judge who has now twice seen her overreach. She paused. She'd have to be very motivated, or very foolish. I nodded. I thought about the text, the December text. "I don't actually want full custody. I just want him to have to fight for it. I want him to feel what scared feels like for once." I had spent 4 years afraid of what Karen might do, what she might say, what she might take. I had organized my entire life around that fear. The lockbox, the records, the constant low-level vigilance that never fully switched off. I had carried it so long it had started to feel like just part of me. Standing on those courthouse steps in April, I tried to put it down. I'm not sure I fully managed it, but I tried. There are things I lost in all of this that I don't talk about much. I lost my late 20s to the first 2 years of it. I lost the version of my life where Lily had 2 present, healthy parents. I lost whatever it was I had believed about Karen once, before I knew what I was looking at. I was never angry about the money exactly. I was angry about the hours, the nights lying awake, the fear that had lived in my chest from the moment I first heard Lily go silent in her crib. You don't get those hours back. Karen exercised her first supervised visitation in June 2024, 3 years and 4 months after she had last seen her daughter. Lily came home afterward and I asked her how it was. She said it was fine. She said Karen's hair was different. She said they went to the park and it was nice, but the swings were different from our park. Then she asked if we could have tacos for dinner. We had tacos for dinner. I didn't ask her anything else about it. I wasn't going to make Lily carry something that was mine to carry. What I know at 34 years old, living in Clarksburg, Maryland, on a Tuesday morning in May, is this. The thing Karen wanted to take from me was the sense that I had built something real. She wanted the fight to cost more than the outcome was worth. She wanted me to feel finally the fear she had been carrying for years before she ever became a mother. The fear that she was not adequate, not capable, not enough for the life she'd fallen into. I understand that now, more than I used to. That doesn't make it okay, but it makes it legible. What I built quietly, over 5 years, in a 1-bedroom apartment rent and then a 2-bedroom apartment on a project manager's salary and 5 hours of sleep, was a child who says stop when she means stop, and yes when she means yes, and who brings her drawings to show you with her whole body vibrating with pride. A child who names her stuffed animals and establishes governance systems for imaginary games, and cries at sad parts of movies, and then laughs at herself for crying. Karen showed up with a lawyer and a swimming pool and a $1.8 million house in Chevy Chase. She showed up with $650 an hour Robert Parrish and a fabricated affidavit and a husband whose wire transfers left a paper trail. She had no idea what I'd been quietly building. Neither did I for a long time. I thought I was just surviving. I thought I was just making lunch and reading bedtime stories and showing up. I didn't understand until I sat in a courtroom and watched a psychologist's report describe my daughter as a securely attached, emotionally healthy, thriving child. That survival, done with enough consistency and enough love, becomes something else entirely. It becomes a life. Lily turned 4 in July 2024. I made her a cake with blue frosting because blue is her favorite color, and she ate 3 pieces and got frosting on her ear, and my mother drove up from Richmond, and Marcus and his wife came over, and Mrs. Park brought a dish of the spicy rice cake that Lily has decided is her favorite food. We sang in the backyard until it got dark. Lily fell asleep in the car on the way home, and I carried her inside and put her in her bed and stood in her doorway for a moment in the dark. Her room smelled like frosting and books, and the particular smell of a child who has been completely, physically happy all day. I thought about that first word she'd ever said, stop. I thought about how long it had taken her to stop flinching, to stop going still, to understand that noise was allowed and want was allowed and she was safe. I turned off the light. She was safe. That's the whole story. That's all of it.